Y'all made the long journey over. Are you worn out, exhausted? Did you get lost wading through the weeds, the forest, or anything? It was like over the river through the woods to get here? Wow. Well, tell the guy in the back of the room, because he made that story for you guys. We were on our way over a little bit early, and we're like, I think we need to let these guys know how to get here. Oh, no. I think I'm going to have to make sure we're over there at the EMR.
And it said you were beside the safety bar, and I just followed the trail. They had little stickers on the floor for the bar. So maybe next year you put stickers on the floor saying,
maybe I should. Big pictures of my face on the floor, like this big.
Just the seminar booth, just sort of like, when you're going down an airplane, they got the things that light up.
Yeah, no, exactly. Well, thanks for coming, guys. Hopefully a few more will trickle in here in the next few minutes. I was just at the last couple seminars, and it took everybody a little bit to get going. But do y'all know who Harvey Weinstein is? Anybody here who doesn't really know who Harvey Weinstein is? Well, the reason that I ask you that is I was watching a movie the other night. I swear Siri and my smart TV talk to each other, and they know that I do a lot of research and reading about these kinds of topics. And so a documentary from Dateline came on. Frontline, no, it was Frontline that came on about Harvey Weinstein. And I was like, it piqued my interest. I'm going to watch this. And so for those of you that don't know who he is, Harvey Weinstein is Miramax Films. He's a big time, or I should say he was, a big time Hollywood film producer. And for any young talent coming into the film industry, he was kind of the gatekeeper, if you will, and you kind of had to go through him to get anywhere. And I want to tell you about my experience, because when I was watching this movie the other night, it struck a nerve. And I want to tell you about my experience with one of the Harvey Weinsteins of the yachting industry. This was a guy, this is back in my baby captain days, when I had only had my license for a couple of years, and I'm eager to advance, and I'm racking up the sea time hours, and I'm getting as much experience on different boats as I can. And I met this big boat captain. He was running a 160-foot boat, which at the time to me, and this was a few years ago, back when a 160-foot boat was a big boat, but at the time, at my stage in the career and my age, this 160-foot boat and this captain that was running it, he was speaking to me and he was talking to me and he was willing to engage, and I did some deliveries with him so he could see that I could maneuver, he could see that I knew weather and understood all of these different, what I needed at the time, equivalencies or competencies to be signed off on my next license. So he was my idol. I think you guys get the point. The sun just would rise and shine in his backside to me. And so I asked him, I said, look, you've been running with me long enough now. I've been coming and going, helping you with deliveries and day trips and such like that. Will you sign off on investments? And he says, yeah. And we're driving down the car. We're in Nassau. I remember this. We're in Nassau. We're on Bay Street. Can't remember where we were going. Not far from the marina where my boat was at the time. He says, yeah, I'll do it if you let me grab your boob. And reaches over in the car and grabs my boob. And I was like, oh my God, did this just happen to me? So at the next time we stopped in traffic, and if you guys have been to Nassau, you know that there's not really many stoplights there, but you're stopping like there's a stoplight every half a block. So we stopped in traffic, I opened the car door, I got back out, and I walked back to my boat. But I walked back to my boat in tears. I walked back to my boat frustrated, confused, mad, disgusted, you name it. So the other night when I was watching this documentary on Harvey Weinstein, I was like, I just met a few years ago the Harvey Weinstein of yachting. And the sad thing about this fella is I'm not the only woman that he did this to. There were 2 other women at least that shared their stories with me that I had become good friends with over the years. And he did more to them than just grab their boob. So how Harvey Weinstein was the gatekeeper to the film industry of any young and new up-and-coming talent, and these folks that have moved to Hollywood and they're just so overwhelmed or obsessed, if you will, with becoming an actor or an actress. This guy he's the gatekeeper in between them and their career. And watching this documentary, I was in disbelief as to how many women suffered more than just a boob grab driving down the road. There was a lot more. And I think everybody nodded their head in here and knows who Harvey Weinstein is and probably heard some of the stories. So going back to these 2 girls that I know, that they're young, they're fresh, they're new to the industry, they want to be here so bad. And you've got this captain who, we put captains on this pedestal and we just look at them like, oh, they're God. Let me tell you, we're not. You know, we put our pants on the same way. At the end of the day, we're just responsible for when shit hits the fan on the boat, okay? He abused his power to sexually harass these girls. What he did to them, what they shared with me and what they confided in with me was far worse than what happened to me. And this Harvey Weinstein of the yachting industry, it wasn't just with the girls. It wasn't just with the women. It was with the men too. He was one hell of a bully. He was mean to the guys on the outside. He would have them working extra hours, long hours, barking orders, demanding that they do things. You get the idea of the kind of bullying that they had to go through. What he did to me when he grabbed my boob like that, days later, I'm thinking about it, and I ask myself, is this something that I just have to give into? Do I have to give in to his advances? Because I want my 500 tons so bad, and there's not anybody that's going to stop me from getting my 500 ton. So does that mean that I just succumb to that? Does that mean that the women that are dying to get into this industry, or the men that are dying to get into this industry, these young stews, that he's doing the same thing to, that I know he's doing that to? How much of this is happening? This sexual harassment, with a side of bullying is what that was, sent me into a tailspin. It sent me back into a bit of depression. It screwed with my mental health, which is obviously what we're talking about today. And when I started talking about mental health and how it impacted crew members earlier this year, but have been watching it, researching it, thinking about it, spending hours on it, probably my whole career, well, my whole life, due to the place that I was in years ago. But now that I'm 42 and I can say that I'm happier than I've ever been, it sent me into a tailspin. And the impact that things like this, I call them, started off with my top 3: sexual harassment, bullying, drug and alcohol abuse, but also race, size, and gender discrimination. So I have 4 now that I'm on a crusade about. And these things, when you encounter instances such as this, a crew member do, it's puts you into a dark space. What it does to your mental health is just, I think you guys have probably heard some of the stories, and if you haven't, you're hearing them now. And you can imagine where that sends you. So what I want to say, if there's anything that I want you to leave here with today, it's walking out of here feeling empowered to speak up for yourself, and knowing that you have a moral obligation to yourself and to your crewmates to say something. And if you want to see a change in this industry, or any industry that you're working on, I know there's shoreside support here, and this isn't the issues. It's not just yachting that you see drug and alcohol abuse, burnout, loneliness, you know, we're not the only industry. It's in every single other industry out there. But I think what I know, because I live it, what makes yachting a better breeding ground for all of these instances is because we live together, work together, play together, eat together, do everything together. I live with my engineer, I work with my engineer. I'm never further than 108 feet away from him. So imagine on the days that I'm mad at him, much less if he was a bully or he was someone that was sexually harassing someone or all of these other things. And so there's a good chance at the end of the day that somebody on board that's doing this, you're probably their roommate. There's a good chance that now you're supposed to go in your off time when other industries, their day ends at 5. They clock out, they go home. We don't. We go down the stairs to the crew mess and we get in our little 10 by 10 box. One sleeps here, one sleeps there. We have a basic right to a safe work environment. Hear that. That is one of the most basic rights that we have, is a right to a safe work environment. Safe physically, safe mentally, safe in every way that you can think of the word safe. So over my years of research, I've asked myself, well, why do these things happen? It always intrigues me, the way that the mind works, the way people behave the way that they do, the decisions that they make. Why does sexual abuse happen? And why is it the majority of the time, not the majority, every time, I've seen sexual abuse happen to someone else or it's happened to me, it has always come with that side of bullying that I'm talking about. So as I've been noticing this and observing this and actually starting to formally read about it in scientific journals and even just general articles that are maybe written, I found that sexual harassment happens because there are social inequalities and power perspectives. What are power perspectives? Power perspectives are basically abusing your power. We see it all too often with, unfortunately, captains. I can throw us under the bus because there's a lot of them that do it, and I'm a captain. I can talk about that. But we see sexual harassment because social inequalities and power perspectives. That's abuse of power. That's bullying. And when it comes to bullying, I read a recent industry statistic saying that there's twice as much bullying happening on the interior than there is the exterior. And I can say that, and I can say this. In all of my years of yachting, I haven't dealt with any bullying cases on the exterior. All of my bullying cases as a captain, I have seen on the interior. And this saddens me, and I bring this up and I say this with compassion, and please don't think in any way, shape, or form that I'm picking on the interior. This is actually quite the opposite. Interior is getting left behind. It's getting left behind from a couple of different perspectives. One, there's no doubt that captains, and I'm going to make a generalization here, captains are mostly men. Men mostly don't want to go play with the flowers. Men mostly don't want to go do the table settings. Me, on the other hand, as a woman, I want to come play with the flowers. I think it drives my interior crew nuts when I do, and I come out and I want to look at the table settings and I want to be included because I want to break from the wheelhouse, and then I come out and I mess it all up because I have no creative sense whatsoever. But I enjoy my interior, and even though I say every single instance of bullying that I have seen in my career as a captain has been in the interior, in the interior. I love to be in the interior. I love the organization, I love the flowers, I love the planning, I love all of that. You know, I love my boys, I love the engine room, I love the wheelhouse, but sometimes it's nice to get a break from them and go hang out on the inside. So a couple things here. Interior gets left behind because, well, I hate to say it, but captains really aren't interested in that. We want to talk about weather, we want to talk about engines, we want to talk about navigation. That's what we want to talk about. So I challenge the captains and the first officers not to forget the interior. Because the bullying that's happening on the interior, there's one reason. It's because of a lack of leadership. It's a lack of leadership, where does the lack of leadership come from? The lack of training. When you go to MPT, amazing school here, or you go to PYT, or you go to any, Blue Waters no more, but you go to any of these schools that are around here, and you look up the classes that are available in any given time period, captain, 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 deck, 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 engineer, 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 scroll, 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 scroll. Oh, there's one for interior. There's not a lot of training there. And I say this with like a heavy heart, because where we're seeing so much of the bullying on the interior is, I don't think that it's an improper correlation for me to draw that the lack of training, the lack of captain interest on the interior, then just allows for these bullish ways to come about. And then you've got Stu's, well, saying that, well, it happened to me. Here's some of the ones that I got that I wanted to share with you. Word for word. I had to spend my fair share of time doing nothing but heads and beds, so can you. Get down there. Well, that was actually one of my chief stews. And I yanked a knot in her tail. And I said, no, not on this boat. We run 20 weeks of charter a year. You're not sticking her down there to do heads and beds the whole entire time. You guys are going to split it. Well, what about when she's on dinner service? Dinner service is a unique time. It's a special time, and I'm better than her, and I know more than her, and, well, table settings are my favorite. Well, how the hell is she ever going to learn to do dinner service if you don't act like and lead by example and bring her up and show her these things? And it hit her like a ton of bricks, and I saw the light bulb go off, and she was like, oh my God, you're right. That's how I learned to do it, is because I did fortunately have a chief stew that brought me up and taught me these things. Another one. You'll be locked in the guest cabin with the lights out and your phone taken away until you can tell me what you did wrong today. She actually got locked in the cabin. Turned the lights out. I don't know how she worked it so that she turned the lights out. Maybe she knew where the breaker was. She turned the lights out. She took her phone away. She locked the cabin so that she couldn't get back out. She was in there for the majority of the day. And it was because she did something wrong, little, like didn't match the color of the placemats to the napkin or something like that. And this particular guest said they wanted their dinner set up to look X, Y, and Z. Okay, yeah, there's no doubt that our clients, especially in charter, or even our owners, have high expectations, and there's very room for error. But in the bigger scheme of things, or how about take that as a learning opportunity? Take that as a learning opportunity and play the role that you're in as a chief stew and say, hey, this is how we should have done it. Or, hey, this is how we can do it better. And again, I say this with as much warmth as I can because I feel the interior gets so left behind, and this is where we see the majority of the bullying. Or, your service skills are crap, so you won't be doing any of the dinner service. I kind of hit on that one already, but how's the dinner service going to get better unless you give that person the opportunity? The only way that we're going to see a change here, again, is for the captains to become more involved, but also to speak up. I don't care if you are the newest crew member on the boat, the youngest crew member, the one with the least experience. You have a right to a safe work environment, and you don't have to sit there silently. Now, obviously, there is a chain of command, and there is a level of respect that you want to show. But as I said when I started off, if there's one thing I want you to hear today, a sense of empowerment to speak up. It's the only way you're going to see a change. And you have this moral obligation to yourself to speak up. Drug and alcohol abuse. We see that a lot. The boat was busy a couple months ago, and I needed to bring in a stew to help us out on the interior. And we're talking, getting to know each other. She's working on a project in the salon, and I'm working on the computer. And she says, yeah, I did this crossing one time. It was an overnight crossing, and I happened to wake up, and I came up to check up on the captain and see if he needed a cup of coffee or something, and I found him passed out at the helm with cocaine all over his face. It happens. It happens. And so, just as with sexual abuse and with bullying and the trends and what I've seen over the years and what I've heard over the years, I ask myself, well, what causes people to abuse drugs and alcohol, or to misuse drugs and alcohol, whatever you want to call it? What is the root cause? And I think there's no denying that unfortunately some people have a pre-genetic disposition to addiction. There is that. But whether I read a journal article, whether I watched a YouTube video, whether I read a Wikipedia article, or whether I read something out of the Journal of Psychology or of addiction, no matter what I read, I saw the same thing every time. And this is a huge light bulb moment for me. So it was social factors. Social factors is why we abuse drug and alcohol. So what the hell are social factors? So our environment, our family, our culture, the genetic predisposition, and work influence. Work influence. Work influence and environment. So this one really grinds my gears. We don't have to be a full-on, we work hard, we play hard, and when we go out and we want to celebrate after running 4 back-to-back charters, or the boss was on for 30 days and we want to blow off some steam, I think this falls on the captain's shoulders. When you tie that boat up to the dock, especially after you've run some tips and you've got a $4,000 tip burning a hole in your pocket and you're 22, 23 years old, or even me, it's burning a hole in my pocket too. I could say to my crew, let's go to the casino at Atlantis. Let's go hang out, let's have fun, let's go to the bar, let's go see what we can win at the casino. I can say that. Or I can say what I always say. I run a dry boat. And let me tell you, running a dry boat is a world of difference. Or I can say like I said, what I always say. Let's go out for dinner. Let's go out for dinner, and what do you say about coming back and all of us sprawling out in the salon on the couch and we'll watch a movie? Every single time. My crew said, yep, let's do that. Or some of them would be like, Cap, I just ran a month-long's worth of charters. I love you, but please, I need my space. And I encourage that. Yes, I need away from you too sometimes. But every time we would go to dinner, they would maybe have socially a drink. We'd walk back to the boat, and halfway back to the boat, half of us have said, I'm not going to last for the movie, I'm going straight to bed. Then the half of us that remain sprawl out on the couch, and we're passed out within 5 minutes of the movie. So there's 2 directions you can take this. So again, remember what I said about why does drug and alcohol abuse occur? It happens because of your environment or work influence. So if you've got all these crew members around thinking, well, we're supposed to drop charter, or we're supposed to drop the boss off, and we're supposed to go get things. But think about what happens on the opposite side of that. If you've got something going on up here, and then that makes you forget it, well, now you've got that going on, so then that starts the drinking more and more and more, and it's a depressant. Or you've got friends that are saying, hey, let's go to Atlantis, let's go to the bar, let's go do this. You could easily just say, hey, do you want to go for a walk? Hey, do you actually just want some space and you want to sit in your cabin and read a book by yourself? I'll give you a little while, to go do that, and I'll go do my own thing. Or do you want to go to the gym? There are plenty of other ways to blow off some steam other than going on a bender, because nothing good ever comes out of it. One of my crew members came to me one time. His sister was new to the industry, and she fell into that, young, 19, I don't know where she was, down in the Caribbean somewhere, went out, got a little too tipsy, claimed that somebody put something in her drink. Well, that right there is a problem. She comes back to the marina, ends up getting the boat fined somehow. Captain's pissed as hell. And my first officer says, what do you think about that, Cap? What do you think about that, Cap? And I said, I'd have been pissed off too. And why would you be mad? Someone put something in her drink. And I was like, because she didn't have the personal responsibility to not let that happen. So while I'm sitting here saying that captains play a huge role, and it's time we step up to the plate and we start making these changes, crew also need to have some sense of accountability and some sense of personal responsibility with what they're doing as well. The other one, race, size, and gender discrimination. This is the other one that I've learned that I've had to add here recently. To race, I can't. But I've seen what it does. I've seen some of the comments that people make. This is my engineer, the audience. I've seen what it does. He was racially discriminated once against in the boatyard. And while he laughed it off, not everybody else would. I was the one that was more offended and went after the vendor and gave him hell and told him like it was, and he wasn't going to be doing boat. And that guy realized what he was doing was wrong, and he came back and he apologized to Alex. But what's interesting is the guy that was racially discriminating against Alex was black. I never fully understood that. And I thought, you of all people, my chef, one of my former chefs, black. And I have heard him tell me stories of how he has to watch his back, is what he says. Watch his back. Nobody ever wants to quantify him for who he is or believe his skill sets or qualifications. He's a chef that's published 4 books. He's worked for Oprah. He's done some amazing things, and people don't doubt him, and they've blatantly told him there's no way that you can do that. And he says, why? And they says, well, black chefs don't accomplish that level of status. So I can't speak about what race does. Race discrimination does. I can speak about what I've seen, and what I can say is simple. It hurts. It hurts. It puts these people in a dark place. They struggle. They become anxious. They become confused. They become mad. They become depressed. They maybe start isolating themselves. They maybe start drinking. All of these things being exacerbated. They all lead to a decline in your mental health. What I can speak about is size discrimination. I don't think there's any doubt that I've got more like a 30-foot beam than a 20-foot beam. And I'm okay with that. It took me a long time to get there. But I was at Monaco a couple weeks ago, and I was meeting actually with a crew agent, and she told me, I was floored. She told me that in the past, she has had to send videos to the owner's representative or the owner of the potential stew, which in this case was a female, walking towards the camera full length and walking away from the camera full length. That's sick. That's really, really sick. And that's really, really sick if the management company is following in line with that and sending it. Now I get, and I'm not picking on management companies, and I'm not picking on captains. I'm one of them. I love management companies because they're the go-to in between me and the owner, and they can get me what I want when I need it. I love management, but that's just wrong. But I get why. You've got bills to pay. You've got to put food on the table. You can't be making these clients mad. And what if this is a client that your company's had for 20, 30 years and you manage 3 or 4 of their boats? I get it. But if we don't stand up to try to make a shift, to try to make a change in this industry, we're never going to see it. I called to check a reference on a stew. She's great, she's good, you should hire her, she's amazing, she's good at her craft, she's got a great personality. Go to get off the phone, and I said, okay, well, is there anything else I should know? Yeah. I'm like, oh, dear. She's big. She's big, is what he said to me. And I couldn't hire, this is what he said. I couldn't hire her, because I asked him. I said, well, if she's so good, why don't you just hire her? Well, hire her full time because, well, the owner doesn't want somebody that's above a size 6. Above a size 6? Like, I'm a size 12. Like, it's a good thing I wasn't trying to be a stew on that boat. And I just heard this the other day. I was on a podcast with Boating Insider. Another captain on there. The episode will be coming out pretty soon. I can't wait to hear it. But this captain shared with me when he was a deckhand, he was trying to get a job on another boat. And he had been discriminated against, or other people had, based on their size. One of the was that all deck crew had to be 6'2". 6'2". Who's 6'2" in this world? And deck crew, what if I wanted a job on that boat? I'm screwed. I'm 5'4". I'm 5'6" because I got heels on. 6'2"? He also shared with me, too, that one of the other male deck crew members kept walking behind him accidentally brushing his rear end. And when he went to the captain says, no, that kind of thing happens, because we have tight spaces and we're all trying to the companionway or the walkway on the deck. This captain didn't want to do anything about it. So I've been discriminated against by size. And the one thing I want to say, well, there's 2 things. There's a lot of things I want to say, really. But they only gave me so much time. One is, you're missing out on a lot of good talent. If you're hiring based on size, if you're hiring based on race, you're missing out on a lot of good talent. If you're hiring based on gender, you're missing out on a lot of good talent. And number 2 is it hurts. We know when we don't get a job because you've judged us on the size of our rear end, or because we're not tall enough, or we're not buff enough. We know, and that hurts. Where do you think it puts us mentally? Not in a good place. Gender. Oh yeah. Than the size of my rear end. I have been passed over because I'm a female. I had a management company call me up one day telling me that he had literally seen a colleague of his with my CV on his desk, as well as others. And this wasn't all that long ago. This was about 3 years ago when I was looking for a job when I took over Freddie. And he said, Kelly, he looked at it, looked at your picture, saw you were a woman, looked no more, and slid it across his desk. It's happened a lot. The way I try to twist that and make a positive out of a negative, which I always try to do, is okay, that's fine. Because there's a good chance that if he had hired me against his will anyways, we wouldn't have gotten along. It would have been a recipe for disaster. But I'm not gonna lie, it hurt. It's frustrating, it's discouraging. I'm like, how am I gonna become that 3,000 gross ton captain if I have to let somebody grab my boob and I can't identify that I'm a female anymore because they don't want a female driving their boat? So these kinds of things really have a negative effect on our mental health. And I said this the other day in Monaco. I said, yachting needs a facelift. I think it does. Because I know we're still living back in some very archaic times. As advanced as our boats are and as advanced as our vessels are, there's a lot of things about us that are way back. We need a bit of a facelift. And really what we're looking for is a cultural shift. We're looking for a cultural shift. And this brings me back to, why do people abuse drugs and alcohol? Because of culture, because of their work environment, because of whatever environment that they're in. What have I found in the majority of bullying cases, the majority of any of these cases that are not good? I think 59, in fact, I know it was reported in the industry, the superyacht industry, that 59% of all cases in which crew members have experienced a decline in their mental health have been from drug and alcohol abuse, whether it being them abusing it themselves or someone else abusing it, and then it has a trickle-down effect. So we need to shift the culture of this industry. And yeah, we could add some rules and we could add some regs, but really it comes from within. And it doesn't come from an hour-long online click yes, click no, click true, false about sexual harassment. That's not where it's coming from. It's coming from speaking out about it. It's coming from bringing awareness to it. It's coming from encouraging you guys to open your mouths to speak up, to advocate for yourself. And I know it's scary as hell, especially when you're trying to advance in your career, or especially when you're new to the industry or you're young. Those captains are scary. I get it. But you know what's scary as hell? Is standing up here telling you to do all these things, knowing that my social media manager is recording the whole thing and it's going to go out to the whole entire world, and if someone wants to bust my chops about what I say, they can. That's scary. What's scarier if you don't say something is what happens to you mentally and where do you wind up. I don't doubt that you guys have heard of the crew members that and especially one that we lost late last year because of suicide. Anymore. So when you don't want to speak up, when you're afraid to speak up, think about what the alternative is. And if you don't think speaking up is going to work, it will. Since I've been doing this, since I've been talking about this, since I've been bringing awareness to it, almost every day now, almost every day. Well, that's rude. Almost every day now, I can talk louder than him. Almost every day now, a crew member reaches out to me, either Instagram, email, Facebook, TikTok, you name it, and they say, I stood up, I spoke up, I left the toxic boat, I'm on a better boat. I spoke to my captain, and my captain said, I had no idea that's what you were trying to tell me. One young lady came to me, she had worked for me on a freelance basis before, and she says, I kind of mentioned it to him. She had a creepy engineer on board. She says, I kind of mentioned it. And I said, kinda? I said, we have a lot going on in our minds. Sometimes you need to be like, hello, please listen. So she did, she went back. Lo and behold, the captain had no idea what was going on. He didn't get the indirect hint, investigated, somehow a creepy engineer slipped through the hiring cracks. They eliminated him, and she says, that program has never ran better. She spoke up. Just in Monaco, I had a young girl attend one of my seminars. At the end of it, tears are running down her face. Toxic boats? And I said, yeah. She says, it gave me the courage to leave. I'm on a much better boat now. She says, can we take a picture? And I said, of course. And she says, my whole text message feed from my mom is about you. And she says, in the encouragement. So what I'm saying is, don't let it be just me standing up here babbling on about this, saying speak up, advocate for yourselves. You got to do it. You got to put it in practice. That's how we're going to see a cultural shift. That's how we're going to bring about a facelift into this industry, is speaking up. Nobody is going to advocate for you better than you. And nobody at the end of the day cares as much about yourself as you. So you owe it to yourself and you owe it to the rest of this industry to speak up and to advocate for yourself. So before I end today, because I wanted to leave the rest of the time for some questions and such, I want you to leave with two things. Be kind. If you can be anything, be kind. When you're bullying someone or you're being bullied, have empathy. Be kind. Dig deep. Figure out what's going on, what really is the root cause of it. If you can be anything, be kind. And two, make sure you leave here with that sense of empowerment, knowing that you can make a difference, you will make a difference, and this industry can become a much, much better place than it already is. Thank you. Any questions, comments, concerns? Go ahead. Hold, please. I'm not trying to just come up and get in your personal space, but I can't hear you if I don't.
Sure. The one thing you didn't touch on, I'm curious your thoughts. What about age discrimination?
Age? Oh, age discrimination. I think that was in the notes and I forgot it. Age discrimination is a big one. It's another one. And I think it's a bunch of crap. And I think really we need to challenge as a whole the hiring managers, the captains, the management companies. We really need to challenge that, because my boat, thank God we've got the two young deck guys, because it's really, I call the Geritol crew now, because my engineer is 50, I'm 42, and my chief stew I think is 43. So if it wasn't for the guys being 24 years old, we really mess up that age average. My engineer is amazing. He's great at carrying Ryan's camera gear and carrying my purse when it gets too heavy for me. But no, he keeps the boat running. He's a hell of an engineer. My chief stew, she's 42, you know. And something else that I kind of wanted to hit on is, and as I was coming over to the seminar, somebody sent me a message on Instagram and they says, can you bring up beards? He said, a lot of guys are losing jobs because of beards. And I was like, oh dear. I should really take a picture of us as a crew, because not only do we have the diversity in there in terms of, I got 2 Latinos on my crew, but 2 of my 3 guys have beards. My chief stew has purple hair and she's got full sleeves. And I'm proud of that. But what I'm more proud of is I have one of the best damn crews I have ever had in 15 years. There's no drama, there's no fighting, there's no being mean, there's none of that. I mean, you know, stomping around grumpy about something or whatever, but, you know, age discrimination is a bunch of crap, and I'll start bringing that up. Because, and I think the way to address it is to just speak about it. Because you're missing out, when you discriminate in any sort of way, you miss out on a lot of good talent.
I wanted to say that age discrimination is indeed happening. One way to avoid it is to really position yourself as a solution to a problem. Whoever's hiring is a problem, right? Because otherwise you wouldn't be hiring.
mark out there.
Yeah.
But for example, I run a student 61 years old. She's fantastic. And she said to me the other day, she said, if it wasn't for you guys, I wouldn't have any work. And you know, it doesn't matter what the hiring person's pain is. Half the time, her is in her case with the photo, finding out we're a woman. It doesn't matter. Look at the age, and it's never. You're never going to get a chance to figure that out.
It's a constant battle indeed. There's also perhaps the humorous side. I always have that sentence in my thing that you can throw out that says that age only matters if you're cheese.
You must be French.
She's a line. She's a line.
It comes to the culture.
So I use both, yes, chicken.
It comes to the culture, but I'm actually wondering. Sorry, I don't know if
I think thank you. Thank you for doing that. I knew you were going to here in a minute. the engineer, he can't help himself.
Good afternoon.
Oh, did you get a broken? Can you fix it? It's broken. Hi. Oh my God, FedChip's in the house. Did I say anything dumb? Did I say anything bad? Oh no.
I'm super curious. I was actually looking forward to meeting you in Monaco. I couldn't make it, so that's why I'm here. I'm actually curious about you talking about a cultural change. What the captain here is saying comes back to a cultural thing. The culture is to have everything perfect on a yacht. What's the definition of perfection? Perfection is young, female interior, male exterior, everybody looking super nice, super models and super amazing, having well manners and etc. etc. How much does it matter if they have the right education for example, interior, or the right studies to become that perfect stew or the perfect chief or whatever? Where does the cultural change start? You say crew should speak up. How could, for example, we from the other side of the industry help the cultural change happen?
It's a really good question, and it's one of my.
Add on to that? How does crew, if they can't go to the captain, where do they go if they don't have a management company?
Yes. So, and I commented about this in Monaco is what I have found. I spent some time talking to Pete Southgate of Cayman Island Flag State and Ingle DeBoer of Lloyd's, the yachting division, and along with a bunch of other people. And it was determined that the biggest influence, the biggest impact is the captain and the management company, because that's the direct link in between the owner. So, or the demand for a specific look is either coming from the captain for his or her own sick reasons, or the owner's sick reasons, and then either management or the captains are stuck in the middle. And really what it comes down to is integrity. It comes down to integrity. Can you sleep at the end of the day? Can you go to bed with a clear mind, knowing that you didn't stand up and say, no, that's not right?
Well, if they're
You won't let me, as a management company, I've found you this most amazing candidate, or a captain, if you don't have management, I've found you this most amazing candidate. You know, when I hired my chief stew with purple hair and sleeves, I didn't get permission from the owner. He hasn't seen her yet.
You're the lucky one, right?
He hasn't seen her yet. And the deckhand's been with the family for 8 years. And we talked about it. And I said, you know what? If anything is said, I'm going to say I don't hire based on look. I hire based on talent. End of story. Thank you. Thank you. End of story. And so I challenge the management companies and the captains, that link in between the rest of the crew and the owners, to do the right thing. It's hard. I get it. When you've got clients that you've had for years and maybe you're carrying 4 or 5 boats for them, it's hard. I know. But do the right thing. Can you go to bed with a clear conscience at night knowing that you did the wrong thing? I can't. So, and you asked me, where do you go when it comes to, let me come back to that because I have some resources that I want to share with you guys in terms of where to go, how to report this, what do you do one of my other talks was, what do you do if it's the captain or the management company? What do you do if it's them? So I'll share that at the end. Alex, you had a question?
No, I just wanted to add to that real quick. Talent pays in the end is for their benefit. Really. You know, instead of saying, oh, you know, for looks, talent it's just gonna make everything just run that much better. So it's in the end, again, it's for their benefit. Doing talent pays. That's what they need to do.
Well, I can tell you, my Geritol crew that I got going right now is running the hell out of my boat. So, hang on just a second. Oh, hang on. Go ahead.
I just have like a similar question. You said before that you speak up, and then so you want to share with us like first step after we already had an issue where there is a pattern or perhaps the management company you want to share with us. It's very important for me, in my case as a woman leading a team, to know how to stop verbal harassment or verbal violence in days and also in departments. So I would like just to comment a little bit about that.
No, that's a really good question. And I spent some time talking with a mental health professional the other day about this. Because when I present, I'm a captain, I'm not a mental health professional. I know I've been through the ringer throughout my life, and I know what's worked for me, and I know what I've seen, so I want to provide you with the right answer. It's simple, but it's difficult. Nip it in the bud early. So if you look at verbal abuse or any sort of bullying or even sexual harassment, even drug and alcohol abuse, it starts small. It starts small, and it gets more, and it gets bigger, and it gets meaner, and it gets more perverted, and it gets worse. But if you, as soon as you hear it, or as soon as something's said to you, and you nip it in the bud right then, and say, I don't appreciate that, and walk away, or that was not kind, and walk away, and say it with some balls, that will nip it in the bud, and that will likely stop that person dead in their tracks, because if they're a bully, they know they're a bully, and they know that they can abuse their power, and they've gotten away with it for a long time. So just by strongly saying, I didn't appreciate that, or you can come at it from another angle if that's not your style, and you can say, that hurt. And sometimes with all of the different cultures that we have on the boat, we don't realize we're offending someone. We don't realize we're hurting someone's feelings. And so if someone says something that hurts your feelings, say, that hurt. I don't appreciate it. Are you a chief stew and you having issues with your girls?
Sometimes it's good to know because we know that women sometimes they are a little bit affected. We don't confront situations as guys do in bed, you know. So I am not the kind of person trying to like scream or stuff like that. So then always it's good to have an idea of why we give the steps. The proper way to communicate, as you said, as first, but then when everything get out of control, there is a law or there is anything that perhaps helps as well to give everyone.
If you can lead with empathy, not sympathy, empathy, that will go light years, that will go so far. And if you can, when someone's mean or someone lashes out, it's because there's something going on deep down. And so maybe take them aside privately and say, what's going on? There's a good chance you're going to find that something's going on, or maybe you've done something to trigger them that their little sister used to do to them when they were, I've got some triggers my big sister did to me, and I love her to death, but don't call me stupid. That's one. She used to call me stupid to wind me up. Don't call me that. You'll just see me go 0 to 60 like that. So you never know if you're hitting a trigger, so pull her aside and say, look, I really care. I'm here to help you. Am I doing something? As a leader, it's always important to make sure, what are you doing? Are you doing something that's triggering them? Find out if you are and correct it. Or just tell them, look, this isn't acceptable. As women, for whatever reason, when our crown's crooked, we just want to come along and knock it the hell off. Adjust it. We really need to be better as women. You know, the bros do a hell of a job about it. You know, the little football slap on the butt and good game and high five, and you know, not the slap on the butt, we're talking about sexual harassment, but you know what I mean in terms of the adjusting each other's crown. And so I think if you come at it with empathy and compassion, you'll find, I'm going to do a whole nother workshop on this, but I'll give you my number and we'll have a phone call about it and we'll get into more detail about it. I know I wanted to get back to you.
Oh, just that when we were talking about what drives age, beauty, size, I think most of it's driven by client expectation, which is more so than the owner or the management company, because it's driven from the client. I know with certain regular charter clients, I know, bring on the Brazilians, right? I know it, right? They'll complain, they'll bitch, and they'll look for another boat if not.
But you have to.
I know with the owner, he wants quality work,
Yeah.
right? So I'm going to say the end user, and that's just something, a point to ponder. I don't have a solution or an offering. I do think that you as a capital management company have a responsibility to it. But at the end of the day, that's who's paying the bills. So I don't know.
No, it's a balance, right? Because we all got food to put on the table, but then we also have to maintain our integrity, right? And we have to be able to go to bed at the end of the night with a clear conscience. So if I can't, I won't. And it's I just won't. And if someone was to tell me, you know, that I don't want your purple-haired, tatted up chief stew on, and I want you to bring on some beautiful Brazilian, I would be like, well, find another boat. And then if management says, Kelly, you can't do that, then I say, well, find another captain. And then if the owner says, you can't do that, I'll still say, find another captain. Because let me tell you this, don't be so fearful of getting fired because you stand up, or not finding another job, because if you're good at what you do, there's a good chance that before you ever hit the other end of the dock, that you're going to find another job.
I just think it's so prolific, though, you would be doing that weekly.
Yeah, but
I'm not saying that, I just say it's a point to ponder. At least that's something that's come out of my brain.
it's, you know, I shared the starfish story in the past, and I'll give you the abbreviated version because we've probably all heard it. You know, the guy walking along the beach, he sees the beach cluttered with all the starfish, the little boy is picking them up and throwing them back in. The old guy says, kind of like what you said, and I don't mean this in any way, that the old guy says to the young guy, what are you doing? There's thousands of starfish that have washed up from this storm. You're not going to make a difference just by picking a handful of them up and throwing them back into the sea. And the little boy says, but I made a difference to that one. So to answer your question, it's so prolific, but one crew member at a time. I'm getting text messages, only one a day, sometimes not every day, but just about one a day now from crew members saying, thanks. Thanks for encouraging me to step up. So in order to see any sort of cultural shift, it's oh, we got two mics now? He's such a good engineer. So go ahead, I'm coming.
Captain, you've done a really phenomenal job, well, first of all, on my Yachtie, with providing resources to your crew and to actually just worldwide on, you know, if this happens, this is what you have to do. Being from an insurance background, we are promoting mental health for free because mental health is really important to us. What is it that we could do better to share this among not just your crew, but crew anywhere? Free mental health, because there's Yacht Crew Health, which is free, and I mean, I've gone to your website and you have tons of resources about a bunch of different things, and kudos to you.
Thank
You're
you.
amazing. What else can we do to help you to promote that among crew, where they can go get mental health for free?
Well, one thing that I think insurance could do, and this is probably a much deeper conversation, is make it required that every crew member has taken the basic mental health first aid course. And I hate to be like this, but anytime you hit anybody, owner or not, you hit them in the pocketbook and you tell them, hey, if all of your crew has such and such mental health first aid course, and you get a little discount, or we just simply do unless you have had that, right? And it's only a 2-day course, but it's a start. It's a huge start to that. Sharing the resources. You caught me off guard with your question. How can we help? I'm like, oh my God, I got to think about this. So can I get back to you?
I wanted
Thank you for saying that, because I'm not going to lie, there is a vulnerable piece to what I do, to standing here up on the stage and to sharing these stories and to just being real and to being me. And I'm like, man, is somebody going to bust my chops when this goes up? So you inspire me. And let me just say this while we're here, you guys inspire me. Thank you for coming. I mean, you went over the river and through the woods. I mean, uphill both ways in 10 feet of snow to get here. And you guys are what allows me to do this. So thank you. I'll get back to you. Resources, where do you go? Check out my website. This is not a plug for my website. It's CaptainKellyJGordon.com. There are a ton of resources as to where you can go. But to answer the question quickly, if it is the captain, if it is the management, go to Flag State. Go to Flag State, and Flag State can help you. There's always one more level that you can go, but do this professionally. Give your captain and your management the chance to make the correction, because maybe they don't know what they're doing. Okay? One, two, three. Let me go there. She's been quietly waiting. Oh no. Wait 1 second.
Yeah.
This lady has been. Oh my God.
She's first, Kelly.
Okay.
My question is, while you were talking about Winston, he's here in the United States, and it was a legal procedure to get him where, you know, what he needs to be. But my question is like, you are navigating in international waters mostly, right? So those crimes occur in international waters, so legally, because this, you don't want to step with it's not discriminated, but you don't want to fix the guys who are doing this, or the women they are doing this with mental health, because it's hard they recognize they are doing these wrong things. I'm not talking about the victims, I'm talking about the predators, right? So how you can address that in the way that they can be responsible or suffer the consequences of their actions legally? Because if it's not a legal consequence, these things is gonna keep happening, and with all due respect, captains act in that way because the owners of the boats allow that. When the owners of the boats find or they can smell their captains are abusive, I don't think they last in their jobs. And your industry is very, for me, I learned from this industry in Germany, and I saw you in Monaco, and I tried to reach you, it wasn't possible. But anyhow, at least in Europe, there is this way like the owners suffer consequences when their captains happen that. And there is a case in Deutsche Welle was, I'm a journalist for mainstream media, so Deutsche Welle has a documentary about several cases that were happening in Lear. Lear is the best school for captains and everything in Germany. And the owners has to pay a penalty. You know, legally, it was a procedure that maybe you can use it in your favor, because it happened in international waters. So if there is not a legal consequence for the predator,
Well, you're right. We either have to get them legally or we have to get them in the pocket. And that's a really good point. And Nautilus does a really good job of taking and fielding these complaints as well. And they've got a backbone of attorneys that can take these if they need to move it forward. We're not as good on the U.S. side of things. I have a lot of ideas and projects in place that I don't want to give away yet, but there needs to be some sort of reporting agency, reporting body. There needs to be some teeth to it. There needs to be attorneys behind it. There needs to be insurance behind it. Insurance is such an influential place. I mean, it's sad to say, but if you hit somebody in the pocketbook, you know, you see a little bit more of a change.
Is it just
Hang
a
on.
curiosity about, she was mentioning international waters. So if you got a boat, that pertains then to the flag state of the boat.
I'm not gonna lie. That's a really good question. Somebody, a flag state representative, shared with me that a young woman had gotten raped in international waters, and nobody would help. Flag State wasn't his flag state. Flag State didn't want to help because they weren't in the flag state country. The country didn't want to help because she wasn't of that nationality and it wasn't that flag state. Her home country didn't want to help because she wasn't on home soil. And this perpetrator ran free. So there's no doubt, yeah, we have some weaknesses. And it's you know, when you think about trying to do something globally, it's hard. But I think there's a lot of people in this industry that are trying to move it forward, trying to move it in the right direction. We'll see it. It might not be our time in yachting that we see it, but we'll see those changes made. Go ahead.
Hi, Captain.
Hi.
This has been in the making. I'm Carrie, and yes, I'm a female captain here also in the industry.
How did I not know that? Oh my God. Sorry.
It's me.
Oh my God.
And we're both on a crusade.
It's you.
It's me.
It's you.
So, I wear many hats also behind the scenes quite a bit. I am an instructor also, so I am teaching OUPV here in the U.S., which is the baseline for the captains that are rising up through the ranks. And we start this discussion in my courses as well. Years ago when I decided to get into maritime education and not just work for the vessels directly, wanting to make an impact with the mariners right down at the base level. Let's get it out of the way. And I have been blessed to work with a lot of great instructors, sat in a lot of great courses, and we start to hear things that come back around that we start to address. Sitting in seminars and conferences with the Coast Guard here in the U.S., participating in regulations, advisement, workshops for Coast Guard, which then send them up to the IMO. And by the way, any mariner out here is eligible to participate in these, so a little plug there. National Maritime Center, the website, lists when MRPAC is meeting and how to go and just participate. But we continuously see a theme, and you actually hit upon it. Part of it is the lack of leadership, and how do we complete the leadership out here?
Well, so I like to think that I've got a pretty good foundation for leadership. And I attribute that to my prior career. So I was a chemistry professor. And to lead a classroom, to teach a classroom, to get an entire lecture hall's attention and teach something that is so daunting and boring as chemistry. I don't think it's boring, but they did. Thank you. There's a leadership piece. My mom instilled it in me. I don't want to say that I have a natural ability because you can learn anything, but I read. Simon Sinek is my YouTube channel. Brené Brown, my books. If you looked at my bookshelf, it's leadership, 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 leadership. You know, my YouTube. I mean, there's a reason that Netflix popped up the Harvey Weinstein thing, because it knows that I'm looking at these kinds of things. So we're lacking leadership. And let me say this: captains become captains because we like to drive boats, we like weather, and we like nav. Nobody told us along the way that we have to be mom, dad, HR, camp counselor, you name it, teacher, like yada, 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 yada. Nobody told us we had to be all of that. So in their defense, they've not had that training. We've had training how to navigate, but we haven't had training how to lead. So that goes back on the personal responsibility piece. Take it on yourself. There's a ton of information out there. Do your own leadership training, and if you can't afford to pay for a course, my God, there's everything on the internet. Like, pick a good, Simon Sinek is my favorite one. Maybe he doesn't work for you, but there's tons of resources. And leadership just isn't HOD, and it isn't just captain. It's every single rank. We're all leaders, and if we're not leaders on board, we're leaders in our own life. So take that on. Sorry, I'm passionate about the leadership piece.
Because you're still on the kind of that common core type item with the leadership and coming off of education and the courses that you take to become an instructor, whether pre-K all the way through. One of the biggest things that they teach us is the communication loop. Getting back to the feedback and not forgetting the feedback and remembering that it's two ways. And I think the young lady back there, you hit on it when talking to her about she might need to reach out to get the feedback from her department.
I ask my crew all the time.
Yeah.
And I've had to work hard at building crew. So my engineer and my first officer and my chief stew have been with me for years. So they are not afraid to say when I'm stomping around the boat with my resting boat face on, Cap, what's wrong? You know, what crawled up your butt today? And they've been with me long enough. Okay, I don't recommend doing that to a captain you don't know or you've been working with for a month, but they've been with me for years. They can say that, you know, and I'll be like, oh, check myself really quick. Maybe it's me. Or I go to them and periodically I'll ask them, man, I didn't get it right. I screwed this up. How could I have handled it differently? As a leader, you have to be vulnerable. You have to be willing to share that and to put yourself out there. And when you do, you'll get it tenfold in return. So as a leader, be vulnerable. Be open. Be what you want them to be. And going back to the resources, go to my website. There's a ton of resources there for helplines if you need to talk to somebody, mental health first aid courses. If you guys don't know Emma of Seize the Mind, she teaches a mental health first aid course, and she said that anyone that attends my seminar, enter the code Captain Kelly 10 and you get 10% off on her course, so you can do that. And then also, I feel really passionate about the interior getting left behind. And there's a gal that's done a hell of a job with it, and that's Gemma from the Yacht Stew Academy. She got a ton of courses. I was looking, my chief stew needed to refresh herself on silver service, and so I went and started looking. She's got tea, she's got cigars, she's got coffee, she's got leadership, she's got everything. So if you're interior, have a look this is not paid advertisement, by the way. This is just me sharing resources. So have a look at that. So I got like one more. Is anybody waiting? Are you trying to kick me out? Okay. Okay. So any other questions before we go? And I'll be here for a few more minutes too. Not bad, huh? I know. All right. Thank you guys for coming. Truly means a lot to me. You're welcome. Oh, I've never had a standing ovation.